And I know early in your career, you've had to go through a lot of those sales. So let's talk about your sales experience as you've started PLB and tell me some of the times you've tripped or fell face
Yeah.
first.
So I'll actually go back further than PLB to like my very first sales experience. And well, if we're getting real technical, my former employer before I had like direct sales experience, let's go back even further than that. Like I'm if you go back to the days when sales and marketing were always something that like I understood, but I didn't realize I understood it at a certain level. And I remember this back to the days of my hot chocolate stand when I was like 5 or 6 years old. And I was already doing like a count on the realization of this is how many cars come down my road. And then I went to the other side of the road and I was like, this is how many cars are passing by. And like, this is my missed opportunity window. So I made signs and I went like half a mile and I started staking signs strategically because I was just standing there for a little while and trying to identify where people were actually looking. So some of them I actually like taped off the side of a road sign instead of because I knew that they were looking like, hey, where's this county road? And I was like, well, they're already looking that this county road is turning, so I'm going to tape the sign directly below it so that they're like, oh, wait, hey, what's this? This is a weird thing. So that was the very start of like an introductory to sales for me on not even realizing that I was starting to develop the understanding of attention and how to grab attention and like to physically identify where people's attention is and then to direct it in your direction. Then you can go to like the customer communication side that I used to learn at my employer that I was there for nine years. And it was the customer interaction of it was instilled in me to make sure that it was always top of mind to make sure that we were taking care of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would always identify like what are their needs and what is their best form of communication? How do they like to communicate? Some people like nonverbal communication. They prefer to get texted and you start to identify those at a younger age. I didn't realize this is what I was doing, but I was doing it just naturally at the time. I was understanding like which people wanted nonverbal, which people wanted verbal. How do you want me to verbally communicate? Do you want me to verbally communicate to somebody else? And as we were doing projects and growing and going through that, I would always identify like, okay, so this customer wants me to come and talk directly to them, and this is the only details that they care about, and this is all that I really need to hand to them. Then I went into like actual direct sales and I started selling knives. And what I learned there was the building rapport aspect that I had never really fully realized before, and the quickly analyzing a room and making some very quick observations on what you can start to build some rapport on and create that direct line of relationship building. And I always got really good at ensuring that I would never leave without some level of sale happening. And that's where it was a lot more hardline sales tactics of like everything is that's cutthroat. I luckily I believed in the product, but I would go in there and you would try to upsell as much as you could. And as soon as you kept striking out in the upsell, then you'd create a scenario in which you're like, okay, I'm going to give you some level of free product, but I need you to at least invest in this portion. And this is the free product you'll get today. And that's how my closing ratio ended up being around 90% on all of the customers. But I later on didn't really appreciate that because I felt like I was going against my moral compass of giving people things that they really truly did not need. And like, but I got an understanding of how to do it and how to navigate when you hear a no. It's just a door opening to where the potential yes is. Instead of looking at it as rejection, I looked at it as, okay, so this didn't work for you, but based on what I'm seeing and hearing, something will. So I'm going to start opening doors and continue to get all the no's, and I'm going to flush out where my leverage point is, and I'm going to go and attack that angle. So I would say that was kind of my journey up to opening my own business. And I think the journey of opening the business is where I always do best in sales is where the relationships are really built. And anytime that I'm hyper focusing on trying to sell something and that's all I'm doing is when we start to fall flat on our face. And like what I've truly found is when I have the pressure of needing to sell something and I don't have that organic conversation of like, hey, I truly want to take care of that customer and it's all robotic and I'm just pulling tools out of my belt and just going through it. Sure, sales happen, but not at the same rate as when I organically just sit down, I'm relaxed and I don't need to sell it.
Yep.
I may want to, and I may think that it's a very good opportunity for this person, but at the end of the day, the pressure isn't there. And sometimes I feel like they can just smell it on you. Like when you have this much pressure built up and all you're thinking about is like, I can't say the wrong thing. I can't do the wrong body language. I can't say, I need to make sure that I use this tool at this point. I need to flush this out. When you're psychoanalyzing everything and it's not just organic, the way that not every tool needs to be used all the time.
Nope.
And that's what I've truly like started to learn. Like the more that I get exposed to it and the more that I grow in it, the less I care about trying to use any sort of tool besides like what feels natural and where is this conversation headed. You do some baseline reading on how people are perceiving you or what their intent is, and then you just go from there.
And it's really all about you knowing what tool to use at what time. And sales is, and you brought up a lot of different theories during your whole sales journey, which are fascinating to listen to. And for the folks at home, a lot of it is just understanding and being able to read between the lines because you've used a lot of if and thens. If I do this, then can I get this? It's a compromise.
Yep.
You're going in with what your ultimate goal is, but you're going above it so that way you can work your way backwards is what you did in a lot of those situations. There's also the either the door wide open or I'm going to take an inch and see how much I can get. And most successful salespeople do the full door open and they work their way backwards. And you've talked about objections. And most objections, people have one, is what I've learned. They have one that they stick to and it works. They find the one just through attrition and dealing with sales folks, the one that always works. And that's what they do. It doesn't matter if it's a car dealership or if it's someone they see at Costco who's trying to give them free samples. Doesn't matter. But if you as a sales individual have a way to get past, I would say 3 objections is what I always do because they're historically the same. And it's finding the pattern is then it becomes, okay, now we've pushed that aside. Let's have a real talk of what do you need? And you almost get to play Sherlock Holmes because what you're talking about is, okay, I could have sold you those pair of glasses that are on the table, but why do you need them? Where are you going? Give me more information so I can help consult. And that is, in my opinion, the diamond. Whenever you're in a relationship with the client or anyone you know, and you're working through that, if you start having them come to you for advice, that's when you know you have a really strong relationship and they value your opinion. Because that's truly all sales is your opinion of, I believe in my product. I believe in what I'm going to do. And as you grow that, dealing with your clientele, they don't have time to go out and always seek the information. But if they have a community of allies that they trust, and that's something that's huge of having people you know, like, and trust in that realm, imagine where the world would be when you have communities of just good people who are working together, who just have layers and layers and layers of people they know. And that's where our culture is going. You ask for something like this back in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't as feasible. But technology has opened up a lot of that for us. I can make a phone call to someone in Australia in 30 seconds. It could be one of my buddies who lives down there, and he'd pick up, even though he's in a completely different time zone, because we have an understanding of, we'll only call each other if we really need something because we understand. And that understanding is a huge factor in success. And so a lot of the relationships we've built, they still come out of the blue from outside of the box. And you almost get to be an archaeologist in sales because you're at the tip of the iceberg half the time, but there's so much underneath it that you need to dig out and understand and be able to tactilely move and know what tool and what piece of equipment to use to really get a full picture, because people are naturally guarded, especially if you haven't built that rapport and you don't know how to do it in a quick period of time. And that is why sales cycles can end up very long, depending on your product, because it may not be the right place, right time theory. But as long as you're around and as long as you're taking care of it, or you have a team of support on the marketing side to be top of mind, so they're always thinking about you, it's just a matter of how we do it and the why behind it and how we disseminate that message every time we're doing something. And it's a big thing that comes up in sales is always FOMO, right? And take our economic time right now. We have things we have to do to take care of the customer that the customer will never see, whether that's the gear we're putting into a building or the price of copper or aluminum going up. But our job is to make sure we're taking care of them, we're shielding them, because they don't need to know all this. They need to know what their business is and what they're trying to achieve. We just need to be the conduit, if you will, to make sure it gets done.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where the blossoming of relationships just is fascinating. And I know personally, I've had customers that I've had success with FOMO and some that I haven't, who are just like, no, I know better than you. More times than not, if that's the conversation, we're probably not going to have a relationship very long because there's no trust, there's no rapport. And I don't know how many times you felt that, or if you can touch base on FOMO in your life, of if it's happened to you personally or professionally.
Yeah. I mean, it's happened in both realms, and I don't really want to touch too much on FOMO myself, because like for me, there's a lot of different sales styles, and I don't like to play off of FOMO because it's something that's like a churn and burn style for me personally. I just don't see a lot of relationships that get built in it, because when you play on somebody's fears, especially if something missing out, it's a there and then gone sort of situation. And I always prefer to be just projecting on really where is this going, and all of this FOMO and everything else that's kind of going is what it is. It's an uncontrollable aspect that you really don't need to get yourself intertwined with. So that's anytime that I feel like I've really gotten wound up in the FOMO, I either get burned or it's like a very rapid acceleration to then nothing. So I think one question that like came to my mind that as you were talking was, some of the highest, like best salespeople out there, what do you generally see happen to them, like I'd say over a couple of years' time?
Some of the best salespeople I've ever seen over a couple of years' time, I would say when I look at salespeople, I'll start from the first thing that makes them successful is preparation. And when we talk about over an extended period of time, they get very good at managing themselves and knowing how to disqualify faster.
Mm-hmm.
And the best salespeople I have ever met know their numbers off the top of their head all the time, because it's what they're thinking about. And the more conversations, the more doors are opened, the more they get entered into the sales pipeline, is what has always been called. And it's even in that sales pipeline, there's ways to disqualify. So we're really getting to the good ones. Not saying everybody else isn't good, but maybe it's not the right time or the right place. I still want a relationship with you, but what I'm looking for right now to help myself, help my company, help my family, whatever their strong why is. And that plays a huge factor in the success of salespeople is, what is your why? And over a couple years' time, you'll notice very quickly of, if they know those things and they know their numbers, they know what they need to succeed, they don't like to fail. And they will be some of the strongest workhorses in your company if you allow them to be. And you'll be able to pick up on very quickly if they're self-driven. They do things, and if you come ask them a question, they'll be, oh yeah, I'm doing this because of this. Because they don't have time for a lot of those die-hard conversations, especially as they get busier. And there's always a ramp up when you get people in the door, especially if it's a new product for them, because they need to understand it and be able to articulate it. The thing that most of us sales folks hate is being called green. It's always been my biggest fear. It's happened to me a couple of times of, yeah, I don't know if I want to work with you yet. Or it comes down the line if you have like your mentor with you and they get it because they have a relationship with that individual. And that's happened to me. And it's not a good feeling, but it also, the good people internalize rejection, because it's not rejection forever necessarily. It's for now. And we get asked a lot of, what do you do when you get rejected? Are you okay? Do you go sit in the corner? Do you sit in a fetal position? No, I go after the next one. because this person said no. Okay, no, that's all I want. I either want a yes or a no, or when can I talk to you next? And it's okay because people are still running a business, and or they don't need your product now, but you've touched on things during conversation that are limelights or they're nuggets of information. And now when you call them, it's the follow up is king, and respecting people's time, right? If I were to call you and say, hey, Matt, I'd love to build your next building. Like, dude, I'm not building a building right now. Oh, okay, cool. Are you thinking about doing that in your future? And your response is, well, maybe. Well, awesome. Can I shoot you a call in 6 months or a year? Sure. Sounds good to me. Now I've gathered small nuggets of information. There may be a seed planted in your head about building a building. And now when I call you next time, you may not even remember my name. But if I'm bringing you value, and now it might be the right time, right place. And every time I do that on the phone with you, or if I meet you in person at a networking event or whatever it is, I'm slowly building rapport with you, and you may not realize it, but I look at you that way as a sales individual. And I do that for everybody, right? And if you're building that master file on folks, not trying to utilize them or use them by any means, but if you have 1,000 people you're building relationships with, you still need to be able to care about them, value them, understand them, have a relationship with them. And I don't know about you, but I can't manage 1,000 relationships at one time. And I also can't remember everything about it. So that's why technologies and CRMs being able to reflect and say, man, I know that person. I know their first name. I know their last name. And there's something about them. And being able to go find that because you already took the note. Oh yeah, they actually own this company, and they've actually, oh my God, they've expanded and research. And then your mind just goes like this. And it's like, I'd like to grab coffee and catch up. Is that okay with you? Absolutely. Cool. Now we're just touching base again. We might have common ground. We might have something to help each other with. And it starts all over again.
Yep.
And that is how you compound and take care of folks, even when rejection's there. Because rejection truly isn't rejection. You're just, every time you do it, you're gathering information. And if you're not, you may need to sit down and reflect. And that plays a factor in a lot of the successful salespeople is they're always reflecting. Especially if they get an objection and they're getting the same answer every single time and there's no success, that bothers us. Of like, okay, do I need to switch up my words? Do I need to answer a different style of question? Am I asking open-ended questions to allow conversation to happen? Or am I asking closed-ended ones and they just say yes, no, and all of a sudden we have really awkward silence, which plays a factor. And if you have those conversations and there is awkward silence, in my personal experience and professional experience, the first one to talk loses every time.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you ask an open-ended conversation that is stumping someone. And if you interject to ask some type of follow-up, you've diffused it because they've already lost what they were digging for in their head to answer your question accordingly, if you have the rapport.
Yep. No, I definitely agree with all those sentiments. When I originally asked you the question, I was trying to dig to, you touched on the why, and that's really what I was digging for, because I watch a lot of elite salespeople be in it for like just the money. And like, it's something that is very short lived. Like over a couple year time, they'll know all their numbers. They'll be extremely calculated, but then they feel like they're a mindless robot, like at the end of it. And I truly feel that's why I push relationships so hard, because even the people who are in like 20% threshold of like, they're not in that top tier salesperson, I've watched them last in sales so much longer than those top tiers. They all seem to, not all, but a lot of them seem to burn out after a certain period of time because they were in it for all of the wrong reasons. And all they did was just become sharks. And then they start to feel empty in their soul. They start to feel empty in other ways. Like I had a very small point in my life in doing sales, and I got hyper good at it. And I was doing it for a lot of the wrong reasons. And I felt so empty inside. I was amazing at follow-up. I was amazing at my numbers. I was amazing at closing. I was amazing at all these things. But at the end of the day, I realized I'm like, hey, morally, I feel like I'm violating myself because like I'm selling stuff to people that they don't need. And there's no reason for this. Like I'm shoving things down their throat, and I'm just really good at finding their pain points and really good at creating a scenario around that pain point in which oh, I'm gonna solve the pain point that I created for you, and now you're gonna buy my product. So
Yeah.
that's yeah. Everything you said, like I think at the end of the day, anybody can be good at sales,
Mm-hmm.
and all it truly does take is finding your lane in
Mm-hmm.
sales. I don't think the same lane is. I don't think every person has the same lane. I don't think every lane is adequate or appropriate for everybody.
No.
Like if it doesn't feel natural, stop doing it in sales. Like
Yep.
some people are like, oh, this person's really good at sales, and then they start forcing a process that they've like identified that this person's really good at. Well, if you're not natural at it and it doesn't come at some level of organic,
Yeah.
find a different one. There's a million different sales processes out there, and there's no reason that one shoe fits all. Because I
Yep.
mean, real estate agents, if you were to take, I mean, any form of salesperson, I'm not going to start to get
Yep.
hyper specific, but they all have different techniques that
Oh,
truly
yeah.
do work. And if it feels natural and it's easy for you to remember, start running with it.
Well, and you have to always keep in mind that all the theories that are out there, don't get me wrong, love them all, from the Adidas to Chris Voss's stuff, and Jeb Blunt's with people like you, and there's so many different theologies out there.
Mm-hmm.
But really, all it is you as an individual figuring out what works best for you and using it, and putting your own tone and attentionality and attitude towards it, and owning it. And that's something I don't see people doing. A lot of people, it's script work.
Yep.
Oh, got me reading off a script. And then you become a mindless robot. Or if you're a real estate agent and you're selling homes, and you're just doing it because you need to pay for something, but you don't enjoy the people and watching them own their first home. And the product is just as important as what solution does it provide to the end user that you have a relationship with. And don't get me wrong, I don't know if I'll ever own an EV, but I also want to make sure that people we're installing home EVs for in their homes are safe. And if their kids touch it, they don't get electrocuted. And that gives me joy.
Yep.
And half of it is finding what fills your cup as a salesperson. I could sell nuts and bolts, and if I know they're going into a hospital, I want to make sure that they're the best nuts and bolts so that person getting care, and thinking downstream of what happens when you make the sale. And that gets lost. And nope, next one. And then it's just, how fast can I go? How much can I crank this out? And a lot of the folks I've met over time, including that, heck, even myself, it's, hey, I met my quota. And there's no necessarily praise that goes around it. It's, all right, you still got 6 months left. What can you hit? Well, geez, I just burnt myself out these first 6. Can I just take the rest of the year on vacation? Well, no, you're killing it, man. Keep going. And that's what I see a lot of successful salespeople do until they learn to say no.
Yep.
I sprinted to get here. I need a break.
Yep.
I just want to be here for a second, follow up with my customers, make sure everything's going good. And that's the other thing, is the follow up of, you make the sale. Hey, how's it going?
Yep.
Is it working out okay? Do you need anything? And sometimes it's even on the front side, right? Hey, just so you know, by the end of this, I'm going to ask you afterwards how it is. Nah, you're not going to do that. No one ever does that. But then when you do it, you surprise them.
Mm-hmm.
And now the rapport goes through the roof of, wow, they're going to walk the walk and talk the talk. And I appreciate that.
Yep.
And that is unheard of. And that's what sets a lot of folks apart, including our company, from others. And I don't really know what other advice to give a lot of folks. Half of it is just doing it.
Yep.
And being okay with failing.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned in direct sales, or maybe perspective shifts, that was extremely important, was handling rejection. But it was the perspective of, it's not rejection. Like, there's 2 things that I look at. Every no that a single person gives you is one step closer to a yes, because it's just the law of large numbers. Eventually, you're going to get a yes from somebody. And number 2 is, every no that specific person is giving you, there is a little nugget of information that they are providing to you on what you may do something with it or do nothing with it. But a lot of people take a no, shut off, delete that customer, walk away from it, and they don't take it, like you said, and identify, how can I better assist this person? Because I genuinely care about this person. They are not a number. They are not a ticket. They are not a margin. It's not just to meet my quota. You make that perspective shift, you become epic at sales.
Yep.
It becomes completely organic, flawless, seamless, easy.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there any other closing things that you want to touch on?
I would say find a good mentor. And it doesn't even have to be within your company. Half of it is just the things that you as an individual may or may not be facing in sales. Find someone that you can have a conversation with that's willing to teach you and is willing to be there when you fall to talk through it. And it's hard for folks to do that internally because they feel as though they'll be shamed or mocked. And some of the best mentors I've had weren't internal. They were external. Some of them are still my best friends to this day. And we'll grab breakfast, lunch, coffee, whatever it is, and just be like, man, why the heck did this happen? Or, hey, do you know someone over here? I'm really pounding my head against the wall. And that is the beauty of it all, is being okay with asking for help, because you're not always going to get it right.
Mm-mm.
And know that a lot of times it's not personal. It's only personal if you take it personal.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's honestly, never take it personal, period.
No,
like, it's
ever.
not personal. If you're going to be in sales, you need to learn to take absolutely nothing personal.
Everything's with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Until you tell me about 15 times, then I'm probably going to come ask you again.
Yeah.
And persistence. That's another big piece of advice, is be persistent. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten that compliment of, dude, Tanner, the only reason I'm picking up this phone is because you call me when you say you're going to call me, and you never miss a beat. And this could be 3 years down the road, which happened to me in multiple situations.
Yep.
And let's do business.
Yeah.
You're being more actionable than my current person in whatever realm it is. And then they're happy as a clam. It just takes people a while.
Yeah, it does. It's a long game. It's not a short game. Well, I think with that, we're probably going to close it out. And thanks for tuning into the Here For You podcast. I'm Matt Timler.
And I'm Tanner Thorne.
Deuces.